We've all heard horror stories of publishers and bad deals that have gone on. Is there something, I don't know, for lack of a better term, like an exit clause or something that can be thrown in there that would allow a creative team, if the publisher just held on to the IP and didn't even print it, things that can pull, that might not be a time frame, you know, that they can then pull the IP back?
Well, what you want to look at, because there are clauses. There are clawback, what they call a clawback clause, or reversion of rights clause that you can use to kind of get your rights back. But the better option, the better idea that I think a lot of comic book creators are nervous about using is saying no in the first instance. You want to actually understand where you want to go with your comic, with your publishing career. And then when you look at the contract, ask yourself, well, does this deal get me closer to where I really want to be? And if it doesn't, then there's no net downside in walking away from a bad deal. I think a lot of because most people who are in comics and making comics are doing it because they love comics. When someone gives them a deal, especially if they've been trying to shop their comic for a while, they are very eager to sign the first deal that is put in front of them. But the most power and the most leverage you're going to have is before you sign the deal. If you have the ability and I don't want to use the word courage because that makes it sound dramatic, but the courage to say, no, I'm not taking this deal, you put yourself in a much better position potentially because if one publisher offers you a deal, then it is fairly likely that that is not going to be the only publisher in all of comics that's going to offer you a deal. There are about 300 different comic book publishers in America, not counting what's going on in Europe and South America and everything else. If one publisher offered you a deal, it is very likely that another publisher will offer you a deal that could be better than the first deal that you got. Even if no one else offered you a deal, one of the other reasons I made the business of independent comic book publishing is we are now living in an era where you can publish your own book, retain all the rights, make the process profitable and easier to understand so that your only option is not taking a deal where you're losing ownership of everything. So I think that is instead of trying to now there's different levels of contracts. There are some contracts that are only mildly focused towards the publisher and detrimental towards you, and there are some contracts that are not even worth negotiating because they are so detrimental to your interests. And once you understand that, you can decide whether you want to negotiate with a publisher or not. But either way, you should know that in your back pocket, you could get another deal or you can get the book out yourself. And then you don't have to you don't worry about rejecting a bad deal.
Yeah, that can be scary. I mean, I'll speak from my own personal experience getting one of the first things signed with a publisher. You're
Mm-hmm.
just, your heart skips a beat. You're like, all right, someone's digging what I'm putting out. I can get it out there. I can start building
Mm-hmm.
my portfolio. Maybe you'll be more likely to pull the trigger on a crappier contract or gloss over a crappy term, especially if you don't understand it. I mean, I kind of shot myself in the foot, and I know other folks have done it. I think it's a tale as old as time,
Mm-hmm.
where the creators just want to jump in. But going back also to the crowdfunding aspect and the advent of crowdfunding,
Mm-hmm.
Kickstarter, Indiegogo, we can keep 100% of our rights, like you just laid out, and go forth and build something from the ground up. And that's just, I mean, that's just amazing. That's where I started with my first, independent single issue floppies, years
Mm-hmm.
ago. And it's what people are doing, and now it's even what bigger publishers are doing. They're taking a lot of their IPs directly to Kickstarter first, maybe testing the waters or just using that as a secondary revenue stream, a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
another marketing stream. It's just, I mean, that's kind of taking over. which is it's just giving creators more tools to create. But then in the background is still the lingering, the contracts and things like that if they wanted to then pitch those books to publishers.
Mm-hmm.